Welcome to our next episode. In this episode, we'll be seeing how we consume APIs or services. Since Angular application is a client-side application, so it has to depend on the services or the API for the data. Okay, so in this example, we are going to use the pre-mock services which we have from the JSON placeholder side. Okay, so we are going to consume user service. Let's check what is the response we get. So this is the user service. If I'm clicking on it, you can see like this is a get request. So I'm getting the object of users. Okay, so I think we have 10 users in this API. So let's try to consume this API. And with this video, we will be covering HTTP client, how we can use HTTP client, how we can create service, and plus basic CRUD operation. All the 4 operation like we can do like HTTP get, post, put, and delete. Okay, so simply we will show the list, then create form, edit form, and the delete operation. So these are basically CRUD operations we can do. Okay, so let's check. So this is the project I'm already using for the other tutorials. Okay, so up till now, what the basic things like directive is there, component, and what are the structural directive and what are the attribute directive we have seen. Okay, so you can find all the code in this project only, which is hosted on the GitHub. So in this, I have created a folder CRUD operation. Let's create a component in there. Ng generate component. Let's name it as user master. So you can see component has been created. So if you can see the CLI, 4 files has been created and 1 file has been updated. Okay, so when the component is created, we have to add the component name in the declaration section of app module. Okay, so these are the 4 files we need for the component. Okay, so when we consume any service or API, so we have to use HTTP client library. Okay, so to use HTTP client library with Angular, previously it was HTTP, but with the latest that library is deprecated. So now we have HTTP client. Okay, so let's check how we do that. First, we need to add the import statement. Module name is client module, that is from @angular common slash HTTP. Spelling mistake is there. HTTP client module. So since this is a module, we have to add this to import section, just like the forms module we have added earlier. So forms module we need when we have to use the ng model directive, when we bind the variable or any object to the input element. So for that we need forms module, and to make API calls we need HTTP client module. This is the first step. So next step, let's create a service. Let's create a folder for the same, services. In this service folder, let's create our service. The command will be ng generate service, then our service name, let's name it as user. So it will create basically 2 files. One will be our service file and second will be for testing. So if you can see, service file has been created. Okay, so for now let's do the HTTP call from component itself, then we will remove that code and put it in the service. So in component CRUD operation dot user dot component dot ts. Let's me zoom it a little bit. Okay, so this is my component class. Okay, in this what I have to do, I have to create the object of HTTP client service. Let's name it as HTTP client. It will be an object of HTTP client. Okay, so we have used, this is what we call as a dependency injection. Okay, so dependency injection is a framework which allows us to add what are the dependencies object we are going to need in this particular class. So this is the object which we are going to need. Okay, so we have just added the dependency in constructor itself. Okay, so next step, first step was to add a HTTP client module in our app module. Next step is to create a HTTP client service object. So we have done that. Now let's create a function get user list. This is a separate function. In this function, this dot our service HTTP client, then so these are the various operation we can perform with the HTTP client. So get, post, put, delete, these are the number of requests we normally know when we work with the APIs. Okay, so these are nothing but different methods. Get is a method, post is a method, put is a method. So get is normally we use when we are supposed to get the data. I mean, we are not inserting something, so this is get request. Post we normally use when we are about to insert a data, so that time we use the post service. Put, when we are about to update the existing record, we normally use the put. Same operation we can do with the post as well, but just for, we can say, logically setting the boundaries, we use put to update. And delete, obviously when we want to delete the record, we use can delete. So these are the four normal methods we use when dealing with the APIs. Okay, so now this is get. So if you can see here, when I have written the get, you can see it needs one parameter, that is URL. This is a mandatory parameter. Okay, so URL mean whatever the what we can say URL or the API endpoint we have. So currently this is my URL. So I'm putting the same here. Since it is a string, I have told you like this. So when this line of code works, it will return some response. Okay, so for that we need to catch that response. Okay, so for catching that response we have a subscribe method. Okay, so inside that let's create a successor, arrow operator, then curly bracket. Okay, so it is simple, subscribe, then round bracket. Inside that we have to specify the result object, then arrow operator function, then curly bracket. Okay, so in this I will get the response. So whatever the response I get from this by executing this line of code, I will get that response in this res object. Let's name it as a result. Okay, so I will get whatever the response I get from this API into the result. Okay, so I can use this result to store in any variable. So for that, let's create a variable. Let's say user list. Let's declare it as any for now. So any we can use, like if we don't know like what type of data we are going to get. And in constructor itself, let's initialize this user list with empty. So this is important because by default it will be undefined. So since we are going to use for loop in the HTML, so it's good practice to initialize it with empty array. Okay, so this is how we empty the array. So in this user list, we are going to store whatever the data we get from this API. So the result is the variable where we are getting the data. Okay, so this is the individual function. Now we have to trigger this function. So ng on init is the place where we can call this function, this dot user list. Okay, so our basic code is ready. Let's do one more thing. In HTML, let's print whatever the data we get. We can print that data using a pipe, which is JSON pipe. So whatever the response we get, it will be printed in the string format. Okay, so we have created component, added HTTP client module in our app module. Then we have created a service. Okay, sorry, we are not going to take for the service, but we have created the service object of HTTP client in the component itself. Then we have created the function, which is just calling the API, and we are catching the response, whatever that API is going to return using this subscribe method. Okay, it is again present in the HTTP client. Okay, so which normally comes from the RxJS. Okay, that is a different topic, but for now it is just a success call. Okay, so we are getting the response in result, and same we are storing in the user list, and this function we have called on the ng on init. So one thing is remaining, like we have to create the route also for this component. So route I have created in app module itself. So these are the previous topic routes I have used. I'm creating new user master will be my route, and the component to load on this route is user master component. Okay, so I have to use this in my header, user master. So I'm not going to repeat like what router link and everything is, because we have already made the separate topic for that. Let's check our code now. Currently no route has been activated yet. Okay, so in network and selecting the fetch tab, you can see all the incoming and outgoing API calls. Okay, so when I click on the user master, you can see user call has been made. So status I have got is 200, means successful. So you can see the response. Okay, just for better understanding, let's debug the code. Let me close this. User service we don't need. First I am adding a debugger here, then from there here we are calling this function. So next execution will be here, then we are calling the API, then once we get the response, it will code execution will hold into the subscribe method. So let's check now how it goes. So you can see after ng on init, let me refresh a bit. So first ng on init function is called. After that we have called the get user list function. So upon clicking on next, you can see this is the thing. Upon clicking next, you can see in result I can see all the response. So that API is returning 10 array, so you can see 10 records I am able to see here. So that same result I am storing. Currently you can see user list is empty, so I am assigning the same response. So you can see the user list has having whatever the data we got from the service. So this is nothing but the consumption of get API. So here instead of this API, you will have to use whatever the API endpoints you know in your project. Okay, simple. So let's use a for loop to show this data. Let's make use of a bootstrap card. So I have already code ready for that in one of my previous session. Let's pick up the same. User master. I think we have missed something. Okay, let's go with the same. Let's see what are the response we get. Name is there, so serial number, name is there. Then we have username. So second column, let's take username. Then we have email. So let's take email. Then we have address. So address we can show later because it is a nested object. After that we have phone. So let's use a phone. After that we have websites, so we can use the same. Okay, for now let's bind these things. Okay, so this will be static, fixed, and the for loop we are going to use in the t body on the same tr. Okay, so let me remove this code. So basic logic is using ng for star, ng for let, what we can say, user of our variable name, that is user list. Okay, So these are the number 1 2 3 4 5 and 6. 6 th we have, means heading. So same number of td should be here. Let's remove it. Okay, so we need index. To get the index, we just have to use the semicolon, let serial, or let's say in I is equal to index. So index is the property which will get the current iteration value. Normally it will start from the 0, so we have just incremented it to 1. Okay, after that user, we just have to use the same field name, that is id for name. Then we have username, so you need to match the same value. Then email, then we have phone, after that we have website. Okay, so let's try to run this piece of code. Let's save it. We have some error. Let's check what is it. Let's check console. Okay, so you can see get student list doesn't exist. So I think we have, since we have copy pasted code from the previous, yes, so we don't need this because that function is not present in our component. That's why it broke. Let's save it. So you can see the function, then our getList function, once we get the response and once we attach it to the variable, you can see the response here. Okay, so let's make it little bit design. It is column 12. Let's make it 12. Okay, so this is the response we have got. Let's add a color. Table sm class is there. Table. I think with Bootstrap we have some class to give the color. Since I have used Bootstrap 4, this is the table section. In that, let's use table success, table secondary. Okay, so just grayish color has been added, so it will look better. So this is about the get API. Okay, now let's check post API, like user form. So in the heading, let's add a button. So I'm dividing that row to this 2 column. Add user. Let's add a class button success, and this call we need to click. This is an event handler. Add user. This is the function which we are going to create. So after this, let's create a function. So on add user, we are going to it what we can say, just show hide a panel. Okay, so this is the section. Let's create a variable is create mode. Value will be boolean. Let's declare it with this dot by default it will be false. Okay, so if this value is false, then list div will be visible. So this is false. Okay, if it is true, then we need second div where our form will be present. Okay, let's add a basic code. I will copy the normal user code from, what we can say, form code from Bootstrap only. In the forms, custom forms, let's check what we have here. Okay, let's create our own div. Because we are going to divide the two section, so we are again taking the row class. Call md6 will be there, and again it will be here. Let's make it 4 or 5. In this we need input. First label is needed, user name, then we need text box, text, then we need to bind it also with ng model. Since we have not, what we can say, we have not created any object which are going to be bind to the form, so we can create it user with any. Okay, so we can have any number of properties here. So let's user dot the same property which we have, name is there, placeholder name. Let's add a bootstrap class, form control, let's check how things looks. Okay, we need to change the variable value also. Once we click on the add button, I just need to make it to true. Let's check the same code now. Okay, on click of add, you can see our form is visible. So I will quickly design the code. Okay, so this is how our code will look like. Okay, so what we need now, save and cancel, save button and cancel button. So this is the same code which I have copy pasted. The one row was there, in that we had taken the 2 columns, same I have replicated with just a different property name which we have binded with the ng model, and last is a website. So after this div we need one more div, and in that we are going to add 2 buttons. Let's declare it 6 button. First button we can say like cancel, click, cancel event which we will create. Let's copy paste the same code. Next we will have save user function, and that will be save user. Let's add class also, btn secondary, and for save we can add success. So let's create this function. On cancel, what we need, we just need to navigate back to the list view, right? So we just simply make it this variable to false. We need to create one more function that will be save user. Okay, so the main thing like save user. So what we need to do on save, we just need to post this user model with the post, okay, to the post API. So for this, let's check what is the URL. So if we check this is for post HTTP response. Okay, so for post, what we can say for the user API, the name will be same, just method will be post. So let's check that. Again, we will need the same code like this dot our HTTP client module. Then instead of get, now this time we will use post. So like I have previously I have told you, with get we normally use when we are about to receive the data. Post we use when we are about to insert a data. Okay, so with post we need one URL also. Then second mandatory parameter is a body. You can see here URL is there. Then second parameter is body. So URL will be the same. Users. So you can see it is still expecting one parameter. So after this we just need object this dot user object which we have bind on the HTML. Then again we need subscribe result. So here we can simply use alert user saved successfully. Okay, so let's check our code and let's add a debugger also just to see what type of data we get. Okay, so on click of add user we have this form. Let's add a data. Let's open a console to check the debugger values. Okay, we have error, 60 errors are there. Let's check what is the error. Okay, so cannot read properties of undefined name. Okay, let me show you what is that error. So if you can see, we have just declared a user value, right? We haven't added properties, whatever we have used here. So we need to add properties to this user object. So let's add properties also. This dot user is equal to, it is going to be object. So these are the properties which we have used. First is a name, it will string value, then username, next email, phone, and final website. So these are the 5 different properties which we are going to need. So let's save now and let's check if error is still there. Okay, so you can see we don't have the error now. Let's add values again, demo, then user123 will be the username. Let's add a email, user@gmail.com. Let's add a phone number. Let's add a website. Okay, so since we are using the fake APIs, like this data is not going to be saved to that API, or we are not going to get this same record in the list also, but we can see the response which we get. So on click of save, so our debugger is on. So you can see save user function has been initiated. So if you can see, I have highlighted on the this dot user, so you can see the same things which we have filled in the text box, you can see in the same object. Okay, so how do we get that? Because this in object we have bind to all the input fields with the ng model. That's why we are getting the all the values in component.ts also. Okay, so let's check the network. Once I'm clicking on the continue, so you can see this call has been successful. 201 is what we can say status code, that record is inserted successfully. Okay, so after it has let's check. Yeah, so id is created 11. So you, with this id property, you can see at the time when we have sent the details we don't have id field, but after we get the response you can see id is there. So let's continue. You can see our response, and on cancel we should go back. Okay, so on go back we are going to get the same record. If I click on refresh again also, I'm not going to get the 11 records, because that is a fake response, that is a static response they have. Okay, but we have performed the operation. Okay, so this is about get API and the post API. Okay, so in next video we will be seeing put and the delete one. So basic code is same. Okay, so at the time of put we need to show the existing information and then again call the put with the updated information, and in delete also we just need to consume that delete API, that's it, and then we can refresh the table. Okay, so this is about consuming APIs. So I will repeat once again, like what things we have done. After component creation, in app module we have added HTTP client module, and same thing which we have added in the import section, because import section is the place where we have to add all the modules. Okay, after that in component we have created a service of HTTP client using dependency injection in constructor itself. Okay, after that we have created a function get user list. Inside that we have used this .httpClient.get. Okay, so get needs one mandatory parameter, that is a URL. After that, whatever the response we will get from this line of code, we are catching that in the result variable and storing that whatever the response we get into our user list which we have created. Declare it with any, initialize with empty array. Okay, same thing which we have shown on the table. Okay, the next thing we have created user object, added same properties also. Now the number of properties which we are going to show on the form. Okay, then we have save user call. In this call, what instead of get we have used post. So since it is a post, we are going to need two parameter. First is a URL and second is the object which we need to save. Okay, after that we are going to get the response like 201, that use this API call was successful and user is inserted. Okay, so this is everything about what we need to do when we need to consume any API. Okay, so first thing, add HTTP client module in your app module, then you can create the HTTP client service and make the service call like this. Thank you guys, just do subscribe and like the videos.